Hey everybody, I'm Joe Pro. I love that shirt you're wearing. And to all you not wearing shirts, please put a shirt on. Please. Now for today's awesome topic. My top 10 favorite 3D platformer games.
What does he know?
Guys, but 2D platformers aren't as good. What is this weird feeling? Whoa! What's going on here?
Well, you're in 2D, silly.
Who was that?
It's me. You know, me.
No.
Oh. Well, now you do.
Did you do all that crazy stuff?
Obviously.
Why?
Listen, Joe Pro, you've been very, very naughty. You ridiculed 2D platformers, and that really hurt my feelings.
So you turned me two-dimensional and brought me here.
Yes, now you're in my game. Hurrah!
But why? I didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, yeah?
But 2D platformers aren't as good. But 2D platformers aren't as good.
There. Now you're stuck in my game, my realm, and will be until you make this right.
Ugh, fine. What do you want me to do?
You've just gotta rank your top 10 2D platformers. You see, I'm your biggest fan. I just adore your videos, and I really want to know your opinions on my favorite gaming genre.
And if I don't do it?
Then you die. Once you rank all 10 and some honorable mentions, I'll return you to your silly 3D world. But if you don't do it fast enough, then...
let me guess. I die?
Then you die. Oh, and don't even think about telling me no. Not for any reason. I took the liberty of rigging this little contraption to drop you into the lava if you ever say no, and then...
I die. Got it.
Then you die. But hey man, don't beat yourself up about it. You're still my favorite YouTuber.
You seem like more of a Game Explain guy if you ask me.
Now that you mention it, I do love their 3-hour discussions. Hey, you get started.
Let's do this.
Important.
Keep in mind this list is my personal opinions. If your favorite isn't on here, then we either disagree or I've never even played it. Celeste! Seems I've choked on my own ignorance. Now for those lovely honorable mentions. The original Super Mario Bros. Is an unforgettable classic, but it doesn't age particularly well. The levels are too similar in design and appearance, and the bosses, all one of them, are underwhelming. It's still a masterpiece, and gaming surely wouldn't be the same without it. I'm not a huge fan of Sonic games, but from what I've played, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic Mania are my favorites. The controls in Sonic 2 are just terrible, but it is impressive how beautiful the visuals and soundtrack are considering its year of release. Like with Sonic, I rarely play Kirby games, and none of them will appear in my top 10, including the recently released Kirby Star Allies. Spoilers, I know. Sue me. No, please don't.
Please don't. Please don't.
Kirby Superstar for the SNES deserves a mention. It has several addicting game modes, and I really enjoy the 2-player co-op that was far ahead of its time. Kirby's Epic Yarn is pretty good too. The art style in this game is so cute, and the gameplay mechanics are a lot of fun. But geez, the game's story and presentation are crazy awful. Dear Ganon, that narrator sucks.
Somebody help me.
Mega Man X is my favorite Mega Man game. It has phenomenal level design, music, and boss fights. Donkey Kong Country 2 is a fan favorite, but it doesn't reach my top 10. It indeed has better bosses and more content than its predecessor, but I despise the cluttered, ugly, and confusing map screens. My final honorable mention is Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. It's a gorgeous game with an astoundingly unique art style for the 1990s, and of course I deeply enjoy all the design similarities it shares with Paper Mario. It's a great game with fun level design and bosses, but like Epic Yarn is a bit too easy for the first few worlds, and I don't think the Baby Mario mechanic works all that well.
Help!
Huh? Who's there?
The name's Dynamite Penguin. I've been trapped here for such a long time.
You just got here, didn't you?
I just got here.
Well, I'm Joe Pro, and if you want to get out of here, you'd better stick with me while I do my rankings.
Time is ticking, Joe Pro. The lava's rising again.
Oh, can you please put Kirby Star Allies in the top 5?
I love that game.
No Kirby! Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo is my favorite of the original Kong Country trilogy, but it's far from flawless. Developer Rare included several fresh ideas, gameplay mechanics, and a beautiful unique art style, and it holds up quite well today. David Weiss's music is as always superb. The game's atmosphere is riveting, purposeful, and thanks to the unique 3D-ish visuals, gorgeous. The general gameplay is some serious monkey fun, especially those ingenious minecart levels. There's an ideal level of challenge, plenty of new Kong kinfolk, and some really neat levels like Stop Go Station. Unfortunately, most of the game's bosses are redundant and easy, and DK's moveset is a little clunky. Just like this dialogue. Even so, this game is revolutionary, and not only because it has an Endor-inspired level. Nope, you got me. That's exactly why it's revolutionary. It's so cool. Oh, honey, you're so inventive, and I just adore your unsettling atmosphere and ruthless behavior. But darling, you're filled with so many levels and so much content, and I am so content with you. Oh! Please stop killing me. I love you. You're so unique and original. The whole package. Ooh. Super Meat Boy Sabella, please calm down. I just want to love you. You're so good and replayable, but how can I love you when all you ever do is kill me? Now. Isn't that better, Super Meat Boy Sabella? Nice and easy, girl. Now our love can go on forever. I never played Super Meat Boy until its recent release on Switch. Since then, I've beat the game and have 100%ed it. And if my romantic date skit was any indication, I have quite the love-hate relationship with it. Super Meat Boy has great level design, creative direction, strange cutscenes, and tons of levels and content. Unfortunately, the music is repetitive, it has a few too many glitches, the controls are a little touchy, and most of all, it's just too difficult. I'm not saying it's a bad game because it's one of the toughest games I've ever played, just that it slightly decreased my enjoyment of the game. It's hard to appreciate something when all it wants to do is make you miserable. Shovel Knight is one impressive indie game. These days, pixelated indie titles are all too common, but when Shovel Knight did it, it was a revival and an achievement. I'm a broken record when it comes to amazing thematic atmospheres, but Shovel Knight exhibits this more than most. The tonal music, color palettes, map screen, charming NPCs, scary NPCs, story beats, RPG elements, greedy NPCs, and brilliant thematic components of the game all lend themselves to one of the most creative and iconic atmospheres in 2D gaming. The levels are well thought out with tons of unique gameplay opportunities and are surprisingly long and hard. Like a broomstick. The various weapons and items in the game are incredibly fun to use, and the bosses, nasty fellows as they may be, are unique both in fighting style and in character. It's not all turkey eating and chivalry, however. There are plenty of frustrating elements at play. Nighttime levels, certain jumps where enemies immediately knock you off, and the slow pace of movement, just to name a few. But those are really only nitpicks to an otherwise expertly crafted game. Shovel Knight has 2 free DLC adventures, both of which have you play as villains from the original game. One is pretty great, with plenty of new levels and a fantastic moveset. The other is meh. Plague Knight's moves are meh, and the levels are basically unchanged from the original game, so that's kinda meh too. But is free, is a value. Closing out this string of 3 indie platformers is my favorite of the bunch, Runbow. Runbow is by no means a better game than Shovel Knight, but it's definitely the one I prefer. What it lacks in production value and story, it more than makes up for in pure, wondrous gameplay. Runbow features several modes that can be played with up to 9 players. That's right, 8 players. You heard what I said, 7 players. Good on your ears that have no fears, 6 players. You got it, boy, El Macho Toy, 5 players. But really, it's 9 players, and that's pretty cool. The central campaign revolves around completing various types of stages that range from collectathons to reaching the goal. The hook is that the background color changes every few seconds, which opens and closes potential paths, protects some enemies with shields, and forces players to adjust accordingly. It keeps you on your feet and contemplating what will come next. Other modes include a competitive race to the finish, King of the Hill, and one of my favorites, the Color Master. Runbow also features the catchiest soundtrack this side of Spyro the Dragon, and tons of playable characters from other games, including Shovel Knight. But by far my favorite mode is the incredible Behemoth Challenge. It has some of the toughest and most fun gameplay in Runbow, and it's also quite long and hard. Like a petrified snake. Runbow isn't perfect, it's not entirely deep, and the levels are all kind of similar. The frame rate definitely suffers from time to time, and the controls could use some tuning, but it's nonetheless one of my favorite indie games to date. DK! Donkey Kong! He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well, he's finally back to kick some tail. Ow! Tail. Donkey Kong Country Returns was the revival that the DKC series so desperately screamed for, and my favorite Wii-era 2D platformer. It has all the incredible elements of the original trilogy, like minecart levels, crazy enemies, gorgeous art, and it's a paramount in level design. But it also brings a lot of fresh material to the table. The new Rocket levels are a welcome addition and a personal favorite, and the bosses this time around are splendid. There's tons of courses, including challenging levels unlocked by obtaining the K, O, and G letters, and an assortment of modes like time trial. I do wish the game included more of the Kong family to share in the festivities, but that's no big deal. What is a big deal is the game's atrocious motion controls. You have to shake it to roll. You have to shake it to pound. You have to shake it to blow. I'd sarcastically ask you how that majestic gameplay is even a thing, but I can totally imagine some dev meeting between Retro and Nintendo going something like this.
Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Americans, I bow to you, my jolly good fellows. I love the game development so far, but it simply does not feel like Donkey Kong without the core gameplay. Blowing.
Blowing, sir? Like on a flower? For absolutely no reason?
Precisely. Gameplay.
Despite its flaws, Return is at once a glorious revival and an instant classic. Too bad they didn't make a sequel that tosses out the motion controls and has more Kongs.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Finally, a Mario game. Super Mario World, in my opinion, was the last 2D Mario masterpiece released, besides Mario Maker, of course. Bless that gem. Super Mario World features magnificent music and visual detail, tons of new concepts and mechanics, industry-class level design, and of course, our little pal Yoshi, not to mention some pretty well-made boss fights. The world map is spacious, the ghost houses are devious, and the charging chucks are charging. I do wish Yoshi was utilized more in gameplay, because to me he feels more like a last-minute addition than a central mechanic, especially since he controls so similarly to Mario. Naturally, my favorite thing to do with Yoshi is to kill him. Ugh, why am I so selfish? Yoshi, I loved you, I miss you. I'm sorry I killed you, I didn't mean it, I was just playing around. How could you let this happen to you? Oh, this suffering is unbearable. Oh. Why, you selfish Yoshi, after all I've done for you and you repay me by disrespecting my decision to murder you? Not gonna happen. Oddly enough, this isn't my favorite 2D Mario game, and I fear it may be overrated. It's always felt a little off to me, but it's hard to explain why. Possibly because it appears and plays so differently than most Mario platformers. Bowser, for example, looks so strange, if not quite as alarming as Princess Toadstool. She doesn't look quite right, man. It's creeping me out. Rayman Legends may just be the prettiest game on this list, and is definitely one of my favorite third-party games ever. In addition to its gorgeous art style, which resembles a painting in motion, Rayman Legends excels in nearly everything it strives to do. Tons of levels and unique worlds, including one based on food? Absolutely! A cute story and plenty of collectibles? Absolutely! An adequate level of challenge, tons of playable characters, and puns. Yes, puns. Absolutely! How about a gamepad mode that isn't boring at all and lets you tickle enemies and move things while the AI gets to, have all the fun? Absolutely! Seriously though, those gamepad levels are my only real issue with the game, and even they're fun if you have friends playing. Rayman Legends also has one sweet soundtrack and some of the coolest music-based levels I've ever seen. These incredible courses require you to perform jumps and attacks in rhythm with remixed versions of real songs, and it's downright magical. Some also have crazy visual effects just to make things even tougher. The bosses in Rayman are loads of fun and play like your typical Cuphead encounter. Oh yeah, and Rayman Legends includes most of the levels from its predecessor, Rayman Origins. Because, 2 for 1. It's a deal. Is a value. And holy heck do I adore that soccer minigame. The simple objective is to attempt goals on the enemy players, but it's addicting and loads of fun to play with friends. Not that I would know, I don't have friend, and I definitely don't have friends. But I make it work. And red team lines up his shot and bam, it's good! But look out! Here comes blue team out for revenge. Can he make the shot? Yes, he can! Don't look now, blue team's walking it in. Where on earth is red team's defense?
Is a value.
Absolutely. Spoiler alert for the rest of this list, Super Mario Bros. 3 is my favorite 2D Mario game and quite possibly my favorite video game prior to 1996. Shown here is the All-Stars version of the game. Mario Bros. 3 is, in my opinion, Mario platforming at its most pure and a natural evolution from the original game. The levels and brand new map screens are great, the controls are tight, the new enemies are, at their worst, terrifying, and at their best, marginally less terrifying. It's also filled to the brim with fresh ideas and tons of new power-ups like the Tanuki suit. The level of difficulty is in perfect balance with a steady climb throughout the game, which leads to a surprisingly challenging World 8. The visuals in the original release aren't great, and it's a shame you can't replay levels after clearing them, but I'd like to think the introduction of the airships and Koopalings makes up for it. And you can float, so that's pretty cool. The Bowser battle is a lot of fun too, if painfully easy. At least this time, Peach is of accurate size and has formed a much-needed sense of humor, both at the expense of any sense of urgency.
Ha ha ha, bye-bye is right, lady. I can't take this any longer.
To be totally honest, I have yet to decide the order of my top two games. They're both so perfect.
Hey, Joe Bro, you could always flip a coin.
What a concept! Thanks, Penguin, you're finally earning your keep. Here goes nothing.
So, is it Kirby?
I said no Kirby.
I hate to put Cuphead at number 2 since it is one of my absolute favorite video games, and yes, of course Cuphead is a platformer, and an incredibly rigorous one at that. Aside from some side-scrolling levels, most of your time in Cuphead is spent fighting the most amazing bosses in gaming, some on land and some in the air. Cuphead and his pal Mugman must defeat, obtain, and deliver every boss's soul contract to the devil, but for each failure, you'll bear witness to one of dozens of unique boss taunts. This one's my fave. The gameplay is fantastic and addicting, and 200%ing the game is a frustrating but rewarding procedure. The best weapons and item to use depend on the situation in battle and add tons of versatility to otherwise basic techniques. The game is littered with several secrets, extra challenges, and the best overworld in 2D platforming. Well, really it's one of the only overworlds, as most 2D platformers feature mere map screens, but Cuphead delivers a satisfying hub world complete with interesting people to chat with and base fanfiction on. Obviously, the most impressive part of Cuphead is the fitting orchestral music and the best art department I've seen in gaming. This stuff is hand-drawn and digitally painted. All of it, I think. Each boss was delicately designed and crafted by people with more talent than I could ever possess, and it's beautiful! Most of the bosses have thousands of frames in their animations too, and each was handcrafted in the same vintage 1930s style. It's so cool! Could Cuphead have more gameplay variety than fighting monsters and pouncing on adorable ghosts? Of course, but doesn't need it. Everything in Cuphead is intricately designed to support its gameplay and thematic elements, which culminate with the final boss. And speak of the devil, if I were you, wouldn't let my teenage daughter out of the house unsupervised with the likes of him. Just never know who you can trust these days. Also you, and you. You three suck! Especially you, Grim Matchstick! I believe my favorite 2D platformer to be one of the most underrated games of the last decade. I believe it to be possibly the best game on Wii U, and I believe it's subtitled to be the perfect name for an adult beverage. I believe in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. The follow-up to the Wii revival improves upon Retro Studios' first attempt in every way. The resolution is increased to a lush, gorgeous high definition. David Wise makes his return as composer, and boy does he compose! The annoying motion controls are tossed out in favor of traditionalism. More members of the Kong family are not only present but playable, each with unique moves and abilities. The bosses are better than ever, and there's a rare level of ambition and scale present. Although there are only 6 proper worlds, Retro Studios were overachievers and made them as immersive and cohesive as possible. Each has consistent thematic elements that play out a background narrative that culminates with the world boss. For example, in World 5, the enemies collect fruit, juice the fruit, and make popsicles for their polar bear master, and all this plays out in the background over several courses. The obstacles and platforms have thematic purpose within a level and are usually tied down to the backgrounds. For example, rather than jumping around on floating platforms, these are being lifted by a massive tornado. Another level focuses on falling leaves as platforms, and one course requires using the barrel rocket to avoid a monstrous robot. One of my favorites is a fruit factory that reminds me of the droid factory in Attack of the Clones. Ah yes, I finally unlocked the 4 Star Wars references in one video achievement! Each world has an arcing background story, and it's a detail that really helps the game stand out. Every level feels like a well-themed Disney ride, complete with several unique rooms and characters, and I often find myself wanting to stop playing and soak in the details in the environment. The gameplay, of course, is great, and at times feels like a 3D side-scroller, and as already touched on, the controls and new Kong abilities work nicely. There's plenty of challenge too, especially in the unlockable courses, which are both long and hard. They really gotta find a better way of saying that. Like a synonym. The load times are annoyingly lengthy and the frame rate during the transitions is terrible, but once the action gets started, the game plays nicely, and I love every second of it, especially that freaking soundtrack, David Wise, you champion! And now for a brief top 5 levels. 5 is a tie between the gorgeous Windmill Hills and the battle with the giant octopus in Irate 8. 4 is the fan favorite Homecoming Hijinks, which has great references to the previous game and stunning music. 3 is level 6-6, which is one of the prettiest silhouette levels ever, and second place is the epic Fiery Fields, which has perhaps the best visuals and music in the entire game. And of course, number 1 is the World 3 opener, Grassland Groove, which I believe to be one of the greatest levels in gaming. This Lion King inspired course is breathtaking and an absolute achievement in game design.
Well done! Great video! I would have played Super Mario World higher myself, but I respect your opinion. I think it's time I let you go now.
Thank you for keeping your promise.
But first, a riddle.
What is it?
What do you call a JoPro video without a twist ending?
Gee, I'm not sure.
Not this one.
Ah, you promised you would bring us home. I thought you were my biggest fan.
Oh, I am. In fact, I think I'll just keep you here forever. After all, you forget one important detail. All 2D platformers have a final boss.
Not this one.
Ha! You missed me, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Hurrah!
Now where was I before I got rudely interrupted? Oh yeah, today's awesome topic, my top 10 3D platformer games.
Hurrah!
Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter to hear about future content. Special thanks to Dynamite Penguins for lending his voice and providing incredible stop motion of Kirby, Cuphead, and so on. Also, thanks to Kevin for that awesome voice work as everyone's new favorite boss. Oh yeah, and I'm doing a Q&A soon, so leave me some questions in the comments. See you guys later.